Today we'll be presenting Chapter 8, Data Analysis. This is by Cindy Gonzalez and Zulema Cervantes for Qualitative Research Design, EDLD 6384. The overview for the chapter will consider ethical considerations for data analysis, 3 analysis strategies, the data analysis spiral, analysis within approaches to inquiry, comparisons of the 5 approaches, and computer use in data analysis. Questions for consideration: what are ethical issues that may arise during data analysis? What are common data analysis strategies used in qualitative research? How might the overall data analysis process be conceptualized in qualitative research? What are specific data analysis procedures used within each of the approaches to inquiry, and how do they differ? And finally, what are the specific data analysis procedures available in qualitative computer analysis programs, and how would these procedures differ by approach to qualitative inquiry? We're going to begin by looking at the ethical considerations for data analysis. You want to make sure that you're careful to not expose participants and also to not show bias in your findings. So types of ethical issues are protections of participants from harm. So examples of this ethical issues to anticipate and address are avoidance of disclosing information to avoid participants' harm, situations where data might be identifiable to a particular source, and minimizing this issue, you could mask the names or use aliases or create a composite participant profile. And disclosure of the findings. So examples of ethical issues could be limited access to analysis procedures and lack of agreement about how findings are represented. So a way to minimize this would be to embed member checking strategies and opportunities for sharing procedures and results. Another ethical issue when disclosing your findings are siding with the participants and disclosures of only the positive results. So you don't want to be biased. You want to make sure that you represent multiple perspectives reflective of complex picture. So don't stick to just one area that you might fit in with the most. You want to make sure that you're going to give the overall picture of your findings. There are 3 analysis strategies that we're going to look into, the authors being Madison, Hubner and Miles, and Walcott. Make sure that when you're presenting the analysis, you're thinking of the general steps: preparing and organizing data, coding the data by reducing the data into meaningful segments, presenting the data in figures, tables, or for discussion. And the frameworks include that are all of these frameworks are similar to an extent, but they all have a differing perspective depending on the author. One is interpretive framework taken from critical ethnography. There's a systemic approach to analysis that has a long history in use of qualitative inquiry, and then a traditional approach to research from ethnography and case study. We're going to review the data analysis spiral. This is an analytical strategy, and it's basically considered a spiral because you don't want to think of data as, when you're analyzing data, as a step-by-step procedure. It's more of an intuitive, you have to have insight and think of the impression that's going on as you're collecting data and coding it and trying to interpret it and then finally presenting it. It's basically a spiral that loops, and it almost a choreographed effect. Everything is interrelated. As you are early in your preparation, you want to make sure that you interpret and explain the phenomenon you observe, and then you identify it, and you learn by doing that, reading what you're pulling out, finding codes, finding themes, and basically everything builds upon from what you're reading. It's not a linear or fixed analysis. That's why they call this the data analysis spiral. And basically, there's 5 steps to this spiral: managing and organizing the data, reading and memoing emergent ideas, describing and classifying codes into themes, developing and assessing interpretation, representing and visualizing the data. This table shows how it's analyzed by the different representations of each of the research approaches. So when you manage and organize the data in the narrative perspective, you create and organize data files. All of this, basically, you're creating, organizing data files. So that's basically the same throughout all the different approaches to research, qualitative research. And then when you get into reading and memoing emergent ideas, you're reading through the text, of course. There's always going to be lots of readings. All of them consist of note taking. So, and you're going to be taking notes within the margins, and you're trying to pull out the initial, what type of codes, what's similar with these themes that within each of the different approaches to research. Describing and classifying the codes. For narrative, you describe the patterns across the objective set of experience. Identify and describe the stories into chronology. Then with phenomenology, describe personal experiences through epoch. Describe the essence of the phenomenon. You're always describing the open coding categories. Select one open coding category to build towards central phenomenon in the process when you're doing grounded theory. In ethnography, you describe the social setting, actors, events, draw a picture of the setting. And then for case study, you're going to describe the case and its content. So each of these has their different analysis and representation. When you're comparing the 5 approaches, as we were doing, there's a lot of similarities and there's some differences. But in all 5 approaches, the researcher typically begins by creating and organizing files of information. The process consists of general reading and memoing of information to develop a sense of the data. Then all of the approaches have a phase dedicated to description, with the exception of grounded theory of the action process. Computer use in data analysis can be very, very helpful. The process used for qualitative data analysis is the same for hand coding or using a computer. The inquirer identifies a text segment or an image segment, assigns a code label, searches through the database for all text segments that have the same code label, and develops a printout of these text segments for the code. Remember, the software is only a tool, and the researcher must do all the hard analytical thinking. So the researcher is the one pulling out the information, doing all of the readings, and the computer use is just it's a tool that's going to make things easier, but it has to be done by the researcher doing the analytical thinking. There's advantages and disadvantages. Advantages is provides an organized storage file, so it makes it easy to retrieve it and to find it. It helps locate material with ease for the purpose of sorting, encourages the research to look closer at the data, produces visual representation for codes and themes, links memos with codes, themes, or documents for ease of reviving, and enables collaborative analysis and sharing among team members. Some disadvantages is that it requires a timed investment for learning how to set up and run the program. Sometimes it may interfere with analysis by creating distance and hindering creativity. Makes implementing changes for some individuals a hindrance. Offers, for the most part, limited guidance for analysis. Places the onus on the researcher to select appropriate programs for their needs. How to decide whether to use a computer program. Some questions that may guide you. What expertise do I bring to qualitative data analysis? How proficient am I with any computer program in qualitative data analysis? How complex is my study database? What is my study? And then these are some computer programs, and we've linked. Um, you could find out more about each of the different programs here that may help you. So basically, a summary of the narrative study, the grounded theory, ethnography study, collective case approach, and phenomenological table. So it's showing you the similarities and the differences of how the coding will take place. Thank you.